The old house stood at the end of Whispering Pines Lane, shrouded in an air of mystery and melancholy. It was a grand Victorian mansion, once elegant and full of life, now decaying and forgotten by time. The paint peeled away in long strips, and the once bright facade was now covered in layers of grime and neglect, telling a story of years of abandonment. The house had been empty for years, left to decay and succumb to the elements, its dark history casting a long shadow over its walls. Locals whispered tales of a family tragedy, a story shrouded in sorrow and fear, passed down through generations like a chilling bedtime story. The house was said to be haunted, a place where the veil between this world and the next was thin, where ghostly apparitions were said to roam the halls at night. Despite the unsettling stories, the house held a strange allure, a magnetic pull that drew people in, even against their better judgment. Maybe it was the architectural beauty peeking through the decay, the intricate woodwork and grand design that hinted at its former glory, or the mystery that clung to the house like cobwebs, whispering secrets of the past. Whatever the reason, people were drawn to the house on Whispering Pines Lane, unable to resist its eerie charm. Some came out of sheer curiosity, eager to see if the legends were true, while others sought to debunk the myths and prove that there was nothing to fear. But none could deny the palpable sense of unease that descended upon them as they approached the house, a feeling that something unseen was watching, waiting, just beyond the threshold. Sarah and James, a young couple with a popular paranormal investigation vlog, were the latest to brave the house's ominous presence. They were drawn to the challenge, eager to explore the house's haunted reputation and share their findings with their followers. Armed with cameras, flashlights and EMF readers, they stepped onto the overgrown porch. The floorboards creaked ominously beneath their feet as if warning them to turn back.
This place is creepy,
Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible above the wind whistling through the gaps in the boarded-up windows.
but you have to admit it's perfect for the vlog.
Our viewers are going to love this.
James nodded, adjusting his camera. He stepped through the crumbling doorway, and Sarah followed close behind, her heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. The air inside the house was heavy with the smell of dust and decay. Cobwebs hung from every corner, and the only light came from their flashlights cutting through the gloom. They started their exploration in the main hall, their cameras capturing every detail of the dilapidated grandeur. The ornate staircase, now missing several banisters, seemed to beckon them upwards.
I'll take the left wing.
James said, pointing towards a darkened hallway.
You check out the right. Meet back here in an hour.
Be careful.
Sarah nodded, her grip tightening on her flashlight. Her voice echoed in the stillness of the house. Sarah slowly made her way down the right wing, her flashlight beam dancing across the dusty portraits lining the walls. Each step she took echoed softly, the sound swallowed by the oppressive darkness around her. The eyes of the people in the portraits seemed to follow her, their painted smiles cold and lifeless. It was as if they were silently judging her, their gazes piercing through the gloom. The silence in this part of the house was unsettling. It was a heavy, almost tangible silence that seemed to cling to her, amplifying her every breath and heartbeat. It wasn't just the absence of noise. It was as if the silence itself was a living presence, pressing down on her, suffocating her. The air felt thick, making it hard to breathe, as if the house itself was alive and watching her every move. As she reached the end of the hallway, she heard it, a faint, almost imperceptible sound that sent a shiver down her spine. A whisper, faint and indistinct, coming from the wall itself. It was a sound that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once, making her question her own senses. She stopped, holding her breath, listening intently. The whisper was so soft, so elusive, that she had to strain to hear it, her heart pounding in her chest. The whisper came again, a little louder this time, a rustling sound, like dry leaves skittering across the floor. It was a sound that seemed to carry a message, though she couldn't quite make out the words. It seemed to be coming from the room at the end of the hallway, the door slightly ajar. The darkness beyond the door seemed to beckon her, promising answers, but also danger. She took a deep breath, steeling herself for whatever lay ahead, and stepped forward. With a mix of trepidation and curiosity, Sarah pushed the door open.
The room was small, probably once a child's nursery.
A rocking horse stood frozen mid-gallop in the centre of the room, its paint chipped and faded. A doll lay discarded in the corner, its porcelain face cracked, a single eye staring blankly into the darkness.
The whispering grew louder as Sarah stepped inside, seeming to emanate from the walls themselves.
She couldn't make out any distinct words, just a jumble of voices, murmuring, whispering, their tone urgent yet undecipherable. It was as if the walls themselves were trying to tell her something, a secret buried beneath layers of time and sorrow. Meanwhile, James found himself facing a heavy wooden door at the end of the left wing. It was locked, the keyhole covered in rust.
He tried the handle, but it wouldn't budge. He gave the door a frustrated kick, and the sound echoed through the empty house like a gunshot.
As he stepped back from the door, he heard the whispers too. They were fainter here, more like a soft murmuring, but there was no mistaking the sound. It seemed to be coming from behind the locked door, as if whatever lay beyond was trying to communicate, to warn him.
Determined to find the source of the whispers, I decided to search for another way into the locked room.
He climbed the creaking stairs to the attic, his flashlight beam cutting through the thick dust motes, dancing in the air. The air was thick and heavy, filled with the smell of decay and the musty scent of things long forgotten. In the far corner of the attic, he discovered a small trapdoor. It was partially concealed by cobwebs and dust, almost invisible in the dim light. He brushed away the debris and pulled the trapdoor open. A rickety set of wooden stairs led down into darkness.
Carefully, I descended the stairs, my hand trailing along the rough-hewn wall for support.
The air grew colder as he descended, and the whispers grew louder, swirling around him like a cold wind. The stairs led to a small, windowless room. It was clear that this room had been sealed off for years. The air was thick with dust, and the only light came from his flashlight. As his flashlight beam swept across the room, it fell upon a small wooden box tucked away in the corner. It was covered in dust, but James could see that it was beautifully crafted, with intricate carvings on its lid. He reached out and gently lifted the box, his heart pounding with a strange mix of excitement and apprehension.
I carefully brushed the dust from the box and lifted the lid. Inside, nestled on a bed of faded velvet, lay a single photograph and a small, leather-bound diary.
The photograph was of a young girl, no more than 8 or 9 years old, with long dark hair and piercing blue eyes. She wore a white dress with a lace collar, and her expression was serious, almost haunting. He opened the diary and began to read, his heart growing heavier with each word. The diary belonged to the young girl in the photograph, and it told a tale of a happy family torn apart by tragedy. It spoke of a fire, of screams, and of a darkness that had descended upon the house. It ended abruptly, the last few pages blank. James rejoined Sarah, and together they carefully placed the photograph and the box on the fireplace mantel in the main hall. The photograph was of a young girl, her eyes filled with a haunting innocence, and the box contained mementos of a life long past. They had found these items in the attic, covered in dust, forgotten by time. The act of placing them on the mantel felt like a bridge between the past and the present, a way to acknowledge the lives that had once filled the house with laughter and love.
It feels like the right thing to do, a way of honoring the memory of the young girl and her family. They had lived here, loved here, and perhaps even died here. By placing these items on the mantel, they were giving them a place of honor, a way to say that their lives had mattered, that they had not been forgotten. It was a small gesture, but it felt significant, a way to bring peace to restless spirits.
As they stepped back from the mantel, a profound silence descended upon the house. The whispers ceased. The air no longer felt heavy with unseen presences. It was as if the house itself had taken a deep breath and exhaled, releasing years of pent-up sorrow and longing. They left the house soon after, walking hand in hand back down the overgrown lane, feeling a sense of closure and peace that they hadn't expected to find. As they reached their car, Sarah glanced back at the house, its silhouette stark against the setting sun. It looked peaceful now, almost welcoming. The shadows that had once seemed so menacing now appeared to be just shadows, nothing more. The house had changed, or perhaps it was they who had changed, seeing it now with new eyes. But as she held James's gaze, she couldn't shake the feeling that the house on Whispering Pines Lane still held secrets, secrets that whispered on the edges of silence, waiting for the right moment to be revealed. It was a place of history, of memories both happy and sad, and perhaps it would always hold a lingering presence, a reminder of the lives that had once been intertwined with its walls. They drove away, but the house stayed with them, a silent witness to the passage of time.